Hello guys and welcome to FPL Bob. I'm Hussein, your number one guy for FPL content throughout the 2022-2023 season. Today I'm going to be giving you suggestions on the transfers you should do ahead of Gameweek 4. But as you can see, I'm wearing a hat cause I haven't done my hair. But before we get into that, please take a moment to go down and hit the subscribe button and turn on the post notification bell so you never miss a future upload. First on my list on the transfers you should do ahead of Gameweek 4 is move out the 8 million midfielders. I have given a briefing on why you should remove each of these players, and I think it should be pretty clear that they should be removed for the other options I'm going to give you today. First up is Mahrez. With the likes of Man City's Pep Roulette, where the players do not get full 90 minutes every game, Mahrez is one of the people who is affected the most by it. He has only played 92 minutes out of the 270 minutes available this season. He's a very good asset to have if he plays the whole 90 minutes every game. However, only playing 1/3 of a game is not enough for someone who is priced at 7.9 million. Second on the list is Jarrod Bowen. Now, West Ham have looked very poor in attack. Of course, they did have the unlucky game against Nottingham. In that game, they had an XG of 2.09, which took the most part of their 2.84 XG throughout the season, so they have looked very bad in attack. Third on the list is Mason Mount. Now, Chelsea's defense, horrible this season. Chelsea's attack, also horrible this season. Teams like Newcastle, who is much more of a defensive team, teams like Palace, and teams like Leeds have all had better XG than Chelsea this season. So I would move out from Mason Mount as an option in the midfield. Fourth is Saka. Now Saka is more of a controversial one because he is considered a good option still. However, his role is much defensive now compared to the other flank, which is Martinelli. He has had only an XG involvement of 0.95 compared to Martinelli's 2.13. So if you have Saka, then I would probably look into taking him out of the team. Last up on our list is Kulusevski. Now, the front three of Spurs, including Harry Kane, Son, and Kulusevski, all have rotation risks with Richarlison coming in this season. As we know, Kane and Son always deliver in the season. However, with Kulusevski being someone who is new to the Tottenham side, I feel he is the most prone to being rotated with Richarlison. So I would look into taking him out as soon as possible. You can keep him for this week. I think he'll start next week. However, further on from that, as the fixtures get much more tied up, I would see Kulusevski being rotated for Richarlison. There are two options to change into from these 8 million midfielders. One is to go for a much more expensive route, which includes Luis Diaz and Zaha. Now, you might be laughing at me for saying Luis Diaz, especially after the poor performance against Manchester United. However, he looked the most threatening in attack for them. And again, I repeat myself, with Núñez suspended, Firmino starting, that should give much more of a chance to Diaz and Salah when it comes to the Liverpool attack. Now, Liverpool have been very good in attack this season. They haven't scored the goals, but they have the expected goals, which is quite high for the Premier League. They are in the top 5 of all the teams in the Premier League. So Liverpool's attack is really good, they just need to deliver. And one of the players who can deliver in these moments is Luis Diaz. The other option is Zaha, coming in at 7.1 million now after his price rise last night. He ranks top for XG involvement amongst all midfielders in the Premier League, including Kevin De Bruyne. Palace have the second best attack in the league, only bettered by the former champions Manchester City. So Zaha, of course, has a tough run of fixtures coming up. However, if he could deliver in the previous game weeks, he could also deliver in the further future game weeks. So Zaha could be a very good option as well. The second option you could go for is a much more cheaper route, around the 6 to 6.5 million mark. Now, of course, if you don't have Martinelli, this should be your go-to transfer right now. He's been on fire this season, has had a lot of big chances. And for the second option, if you have Martinelli, I would go for the Leeds duo. So you can choose with whoever you want. Rodrigo is a much more nailed pick, and many people have him, so he's a safer pick. However, if you want to go for a differential, I would look into Jack Harrison. They have shared 9 goals and assists between them, and I could see that doubling or even tripling up over the next 4 game weeks or so. Only 5 teams have scored more goals than them since the start of the season. So that's my first transfer suggestion. Any of the 8 million midfielders into either Luis Diaz or Zaha if you're looking for a more expensive option. However, personally, I prefer the second option, which is a much cheaper one, where you go for either Martinelli or one of the Leeds duo that are there, between Harrison and Rodrigo. Robertson, for a Liverpool side whose defense have looked absolutely horrible, isn't a good option now. I kept trusting him for the 3rd game week in a row, and he still went on to disappoint. So Robertson, I wouldn't say is a very good option. And with Robertson, you are already blocking the 3rd Liverpool spot in your team. Of course, most of you have Salah and Trent, and the 3rd option either goes to Núñez before his suspension, Diaz or Robertson. Personally, I feel like Diaz, as mentioned previously, is a very good option for Liverpool and is a much better option than Robertson, as Liverpool's attack has looked much more solid than Liverpool's defense this season. The second person I would be looking to remove, if you have him and if you have an extra transfer lying by, is Reece James. He has played almost 40% of his games this season as a right centre back. Now, if he goes on to play right wing back in the next game, then he could be of great value. He's a very solid player when it comes to returning points for the Premier League, for your fantasy. However, playing at the right centre back position, he doesn't get into much attacking positions. Loftus-Cheek is played over him in the right wing back at the moment, as the Chelsea have a lack of centre backs. So once Reece James goes into right wing back, then he will be a very good option. However, currently he is not playing at that right wing back role. So at the moment, I don't know for how much longer, he wouldn't be a good option. But from these two, I would be more likely to move out Robertson from them. Who do we replace them with? I would personally choose Perisic. Coming at 5.5 million, he looks very good for an option, especially for a Tottenham side, whose defense has looked very good this season. They are the second best team in terms of defense, just after Arsenal. So even in defense, for racking up those clean sheet points, after the recent words from Toney, we should be seeing Perisic much often in the starting lineup over Ryan Sessegnon. So Perisic a very good option, especially when Spurs wingbacks are the main form of attack, and Perisic being one of the best wingbacks in the league, probably after Reece James, could thrive in that position. Of course, not to mention he's also very good aerially, where Tottenham have scored their last 2 goals from Harry Kane through a header, and Perisic could be at the end of that anytime soon. So Perisic would be probably a must-buy for the next game week. If you chose a cheaper option in my first transfer suggestion, and also freeing up funds for my second transfer suggestion, you should have enough to upgrade one of your 4.5 million attackers. My standout for this week and the coming 5 weeks is Toney. Of course, their fixtures look very good, with 4 of the next 6 game weeks showing up as a 2 in the fixture difficulty rating of the Premier League app. So Brentford's fixtures are really good coming up. Having an expected goal involvement of 2.46 keeps him on 6th of all forwards in the Premier League. He has been involved in more than half of the chances of Brentford in total. So Toney, a very good option. As I said in my YouTube shorts, if you haven't watched that yet, I also make shorts now. So yeah, Toney, a very good option from your 4.5 million forwards if you have the money, if you did the transfers I had suggested before. Moving on to the last pick of the day, I would choose Haaland to go out. Of course, it might be very controversial considering what I said in the previous video, praising Haaland a lot over Kane. However, coming from the recent comments from Pep, he has said that Haaland is likely to be rested for a few games this season. Especially with the tight fixtures coming up, I would look at him getting rested quite a bit from now on. He's expected to play 240 minutes out of the 360 minutes available in the next 4 game weeks. These expected minutes were taken from the Fantasy Football Hub website. Of course, he has looked very good in attack, and he also might score quite lots of goals in the short time that he plays. However, with 120 minutes less than the player I am comparing him with, I really feel he could be a move out. Of course, not to mention he's also injury prone, so he might also miss a few games because of that this season. And so I think in the next 2 game weeks, it would be the right option to move on from Haaland to Kane. With Kane, you have no rotation risk. Of course, with Richarlison coming in, I don't think he could replace Kane. He's more of a replacement for Kulusevski. So Kane is really cemented in that position. He looks okay in attack compared to his Norwegian counterpart, but having an expected goal involvement of 1.1 on average every game is not too bad. He also faces 3 of the 4 worst defenses in the league in the next 5 games, so I think he could really thrive in those smaller games where he could score a few goals, and he probably could be a strong captaincy shout. And with that being said, guys, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, because we are on goal to 150 subscribers. So I would appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and probably share it with your friends. And of course, as always, do not forget to drop any suggestions or advices for the upcoming videos. Until that time, peace.